it's Lee from colouringqueen.net, and today I thought we'd have a colour and chat. I'm going to colour in Lady Spring colouring book, and I'm trying to use just the Black Widow Dragon coloured pencils that I recently got, and you can see my swatch chart of it below the video if you want the paint chip style swatches that I've got here on the screen. And for those that have asked, I am updating my colour wheel for the Black Widow coloured pencils, but now with the 180 pencils I'm really going to have to put some thought into how to present that so that it works out really well. I always suspected that they would bring out more sets, so I think it's going to be too cramped to be on the current format for it, but I'm hoping to get that colour wheel done by the end of the year, but as I said, it'll take a little bit of planning and forethought. So I'm hoping to just use the dragon pencils and maybe a couple of pencils for the skin tones, so we'll see how we go. I'm going to start off with the ladybird. So I hope you're all doing well today. It's such a busy time of year with Christmas. I hope if you're celebrating that you've already got your presents and your menus sorted and everything else. We've had a bit of a roller coaster with Christmas this year, but anyway, since we last spoke, we've had huge, horrendous storms here in Brisbane, Australia, and I've lost so many plants. They got waterlogged, and there's succulents that like more sun than water, and at one stage we were all a little bit flooded, and luckily nothing went into the house, so that was all right, but the pool overflowed and my water tank overflowed, and the whole garden at one stage was sort of just like all these piles of puddles, and the drainage that David had spent a long time putting in just couldn't cope with the torrential downfall, and it was continuous for days. So luckily that's all dried out now and the pool's back to normal level, and we can enjoy it. Going up today to get some magnesium to put in it. It's a saltwater pool, but when you add magnesium it's like having a big relaxing bath. It's just so beautiful, and your skin and hair comes out so soft, so it's really, really nice if you've ever had a magnesium pool. We often let it sort of run out of magnesium and just leave it on salt water, but we're splashing out for Christmas. And so we've been running around everywhere trying to get everything ready for David's family to come up, just his mother and one of his brothers. And they had planned to come last Christmas, and then 2 days before they had to cancel because of the current world situation, and then they planned to come up in March, and again that got cancelled when the Delta strain came out. Then they planned to come up in September, and you guessed it, they cancelled. So then as soon as the borders were reopened, they booked their plane tickets and coming up to spend Christmas Day with us and spend a week or more. And so they got all of their tickets, and so I've been busy running around buying nice Christmas table decorations and servingware, and making sure I've got enough pillows, because they were also bringing a friend as well for part of the time. And so buying new bed linen and busy at the shops trying to get everything done and everything cleaned up. And with the one up hand at the moment it's all a little bit difficult, but we were getting there and trying to clean out the garage and everything else. And so anyway, they decided that instead of catching the plane that they'd booked, that they would end up driving up, and that seemed like a good idea because David's mum is nearly 80 and she's got a number of things, a number of health issues like arthritis and emphysema, osteoporosis, and she's also got I think it's called Meniere's disease, as well as pancreatitis. I forgot that one. And so with the Meniere's disease, she gets sort of dizzy and lopsided, and being on a plane can sort of aggravate that. So we were pretty pleased when they said they were going to drive up, and they were really happy about it. And then they actually rang up. We'd prepared for them to come tomorrow, and then they rang up and said that they were going to come early, so they were going to come yesterday. And so we were in a bit of a panic because, I'm not too good at the moment with just one arm and a few other things, which I'll tell you about in a minute. And so we were running around like crazy trying to get everything ready for them to come up 2 days earlier than what we expected. And guess what? They rang up and they cancelled, because being in the car which is pretty well a day-long trip, and they wouldn't be able to get accommodation along the way. It's like a 9-hour trip from Sydney to Brisbane. And they wouldn't be able to get accommodation at this late stage. Everything's all booked out. And I apologise for that bit of paper flapping in the wind there. Sorry, I've got the fan on and it's really hot in here. And so, yeah, David's mum was worried because she's got the arthritis in her back as well. I forgot that one. And being in the car for so long, even though they could stop, but not being able to get accommodation, and plus with there's an outbreak of the latest strain in New South Wales where they live, in Sydney. So they decided that it was just all up a little bit too risky, and David's brother's got some sort of foot problem that they can't diagnose, and he was worried about driving the long distance. And so we were on this whole roller coaster ride of them coming up, and I'd got everything all ready, and David's mum's got really a lot of dietary requirements, so I really thought hard about the menu to accommodate, those sort of dietary restrictions. And so we went from all this bustle and hustle to nothing. So it's just David and I looking at each other this Christmas again, but at least we've got Buddy and Millie, and they've got their Christmas presents. We've already bought them some things. I'm not going to tell you in case you tell them, but Millie's is pretty cute, and they've got a shared present, and Buddy's got some games, so it'll be a good Christmas for them. But it's just a bit sad that we won't see David's family. It's been 2 years now, and it's just you miss people, and it would have been good, but anyway, these are the things that happen. And so they'll be going to a club or something for Christmas dinner, and we'll be having it here. Hopefully the weather holds up, and we'll just have something by the pool and just enjoy that. So that'll turn out good. Poor David, he took time off to prepare for his family coming, and they were so busy at work, so he's actually had to cut short his time off and go into work today at 4 o'clock this morning just to get some things done. So, but at least they're not coming now, so I guess he'll get a bit of a relax and a little bit of a break. And we've got some things done that we should have done earlier, so I guess it all works out in the wash. Got to think positive about these things. And plus, for the first time, we've got a clean garage and everything is all neatly packed up. And I have found that many boxes of books that I haven't reviewed. It's unbelievable. I didn't realise I had that many, but as we're finally able to see the garage floor, I've discovered all these new treats. So it'll be like Christmas when I open those up. But poor David, in the midst of running around like a a blue ass fly, as we say here, he ended up hitting his toe on one of my new black metal chairs that I bought, and it looked like it was broken. I've broken my toes twice, so I looked at it and I thought, it might be broken, so I sent him off to the doctors, and it turns out it's sprained. But he spent the whole last week working in construction in the heat with his steel cap boots on, with this sprained toe and it's his little pinky, so it's really giving him trouble. And you know what it's like when you hit something. That's the thing that you constantly hit all the time. So no matter what he's doing or what he's wearing, the poor guy, he keeps hitting that poor little pinky. So hopefully it'll subside soon and get a bit better. But there was a stage there a little bit that I thought between the both of us we might be one whole person, with functional parts, because we're sort of a little bit broken down at the moment. I was thinking the other day of, life when I was younger, and, it was so much simpler. Like the first, I don't know, 5 or 6 years I grew up on a farm. I sort of went between my grandfather's farm on one side of regional New South Wales in Australia and my stepfather's farm on the other side of the same town, so in the Riverina of New South Wales if you're from Australia. And when I lived on my grandfather's farm, he had a dairy farm and an orchard and this great big rose garden. And it was just, so simple. You had a bath with all the neighbourhood kids in one of those concrete laundry tubs. And I've actually got one now and I've got flowers growing in it. And I look at it and I think, how did I ever have a bath in that? But obviously it was a lot smaller. And we didn't even have, simple things like toilet paper. It used to be newspaper on a nail on the outside toilet. So, when you see all these crazes for the toilet paper during the pandemic, it sort of makes me think back to those times when I was a kid. And seriously, I don't feel that old, but maybe I am. And we didn't even have toothpaste or shampoo for shampoo and conditioner. I can't remember what was used for shampoo. I think it might have been soap. But for the conditioner, it was like egg yolk or eggs, because egg white, because we had chickens. And for toothpaste, we had, I think it was bicarb soda, but it might have been something else with lemon juice on it. And you would sprinkle that on your toothbrush, and that's what you used to clean your teeth. And I think it was when we moved into town, which wasn't, a huge city, it was really just a town back then, that someone gave me a flavoured thing of a little small sample of toothpaste. And it was the first time I'd ever used it. It was strawberry flavoured Jack and Jill toothpaste. It's amazing. I can't remember why I go into the kitchen, but I can remember the brand and the flavour of the toothpaste that I got when I was about 6 years old. But before that and after that little tube ran out, we just used, I think it was baking powder and lemon juice. Definitely lemon juice. I think it was bicarb soda or baking powder, whatever you like to call it. And that's what we used to clean our teeth. And it wasn't until I was 15 that I actually went to the dentist for the very first time. And my first trip to the dentist, I had to have a filling, and I was that excited about it. I know that might seem weird, but everyone at school had a filling, and if your friends had a filling, you kind of wanted a filling. And everyone else had braces as well, and I really wanted braces, but the dentist said I didn't need them. But my first trip to the dentist, I got that filling in, I think it's my canine tooth, and I was also told that I had impacted wisdom teeth, and so I had to, because they weren't through, I had to have 2 of them cut out in hospital, and they cut the gums. And I still remember after that surgery, I think we all know that I've got medical anxiety, and I've had it all my life. And I remember looking in the mirror thinking, God, that poor woman, that poor girl, she's got like 2 black eyes, a flattened nose, and puffed up like no tomorrow. And of course it was me in the mirror. And it was horrid. I had to drink through a straw for a couple of weeks. And then a few months later I had to get the bottom 2 out just in the chair, and it was a really simple procedure. The dentist was so kind and gentle. He just pulled out the 2 bottom teeth, and I didn't even really notice it. It was just a nothing, and I just thought, wow, this is so much better than getting them cut out in hospital. which was really traumatic. And yeah, so anyway, for years that filling has just sat there in my tooth for, since I had it from when I was 15. And, I used to beg my dentist to please take out the old-fashioned amalgam filling, that grey or silver, and replace it with white so that it wasn't noticeable. But, he kept saying, no, there's nothing wrong with it, so there's no need to replace it. And, for me, it was a cosmetic reason, and it was, I thought, no big deal to replace it. But anyway, he just refused. So time went on, and I used to have an incredibly stressful job, and I actually started grinding my teeth overnight. And I ground them so much that I actually split that awful grey filling. And so after a week of suffering, I went to the dentist, and it turned out that I had to have a root canal. And because it was the canine tooth, I think it's that one, the actual canals, there's like 4 of them, and so you can't get it done in a chair. You have to go to a specialist dentist. So the dentist, pulled out the filling, and he put like a temporary stop in it. And it was just before a long weekend in Australia, which incorporated Anzac Day and Easter, I think. So there was a number of public holidays. And so, of course, I went home, felt okay, and then developed what's called a hot tooth, which is like some sort of infection. Anyway, it is extremely painful. I spent days with a hot water bottle on my face, and the dentist, of course, was on holidays because it was a public holiday. And I was in agony, and I was calling the dentist on the answering machine, hoping that there was an emergency dentist, but there wasn't. And in the end, I went to the doctors, and I got some painkillers just so I could sleep through this awful pain in my mouth. And I was teaching back then, so I needed to be able to talk so I could teach. And so in the end, the dentist came back, and he kind of blamed me for not leaving a message on the answering machine that I was in pain. But I would have thought that he would have had an emergency contact, and my mouth was so sore, leaving messages wasn't really cutting it for me. So I was pretty peeved. Anyway, I booked into the specialist and started this awful procedure for the root canal. And oh, by the way, when I got that temporary filling or temporary stop that they put in, I actually had to have it in for a lot longer because I couldn't get an appointment, and it was super uncomfortable. And when he was putting it in, I think most people know I've got needle anxiety. Well, guess what happened? The needle broke in my mouth, and it was just awful for me because I stress out on needles to start with. But anyway, I got through it and went to the big fancy pants dentist in Macquarie Street, Sydney, which is where all the fancy doctors hang out, and started this procedure for the root canal, which, they basically drill out each canal, and because there's 4 of them, it's kind of complicated, and it took a number of weeks to get it done, and I think it was all up about 6 weeks and cost over $5,000 to get this whole root canal thing done. And after that, the tooth never stopped paining. It was just like this dull pain 24/7, never went away. And every dentist that I asked, including the specialists that did the work, they all agreed that the work was really good, and they couldn't see any reason why it was paining for me 24/7. And in the end, basically, they decided that because it had all been such an unpleasant experience for me, that maybe I developed a psychological reason, and, it was all in my head, basically. Which, I've got a psychology degree, and I tried all sorts of techniques on myself, and I couldn't get rid of this ache 24/7. In fact, I always feel like my face was resting bitch face because I just was always in pain on the left side of my mouth with this root canal, which every dentist said was a great root canal. So I don't know. I don't know if it's psychological or what it was, but anyway, 24/7, it's just like this numb pain that never goes away. So last week I'm sitting down and I was having such a great morning. I'd got up at like 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. David had gone to work. It was a Saturday and he was working a half day. And I'd already watered the garden, I'd planted out some seeds, and I was going gangbusters on the housework. When about 7 o'clock I decided that I would stop and have some breakfast, some, sourdough bread and a bit of jam on top. Just a normal sort of snacky type breakfast for me, because I love sourdough bread and I'll have it with whatever you've got. So when I'm chewing the sourdough, it was a lot crunchier than usual. A lot crunchier. But I soldiered on. I thought it must be the crust on this loaf that was really, really crunchy. But my whole mouth was having difficulty chewing and it was really uncomfortable. But, I battled through because, hey, it's sourdough toast and I was hungry. So I gobbled it all up and swallowed, and then my mouth was still in pain. And so looking through the mirror, I noticed that that big fancy pants root canal that I had done and spent $5,000 on and have spent the last 5 years in 24/7 pain from it, and which every dentist had told me that even if I had the tooth out that I might still experience pain, was gone. I'd eaten it. It had come out in my toast and I'd swallowed $5,000 worth of dental work. So the whole tooth was loose. Every time I touched it, it was wiggling around. And then the actual bit that they put in the top of the tooth, that was gone. It was just a giant hole. So I immediately rang the dentist at 9 o'clock when they opened and couldn't get an appointment for another 5 days. So in the meantime, I'm Googling like crazy, like what can they do about this tooth? And it seemed like there wasn't a lot that you could do when you've had a root canal that falls out. There's things that you could do like splinting it to other teeth and sort of tying them all together. But this one was really loose, and also the root canal was looking like it was it couldn't be fixed type thing. So, but I'm not a dentist, so I thought I'll wait and see what the dentist says. So I had to wait 5 days, and I finally got into the dentist last Thursday. But in the meantime, my face has been so sore that I haven't been able to do reviews or anything like that. And I haven't been able to eat solid food except trying to get some things on the right side of my mouth and, squashing up chips into little crumbs and things like that. So I've been living on jelly and custard and yogurt until I could get into the dentist, and wishing, that I could eat something solid, especially coming up to Christmas and all the great food and etc. around. So I finally get into the dentist last Thursday, and he says, this doesn't look good, which is what everyone wants to hear at the dentist. And he goes, there's nothing that we can do but take it out. So I thought taking it out would be like the experience that I had when I had my wisdom teeth taken out in the chair, that it was just like one crack and easy does it. And I figured that just like then I'd go home and it might hurt for a couple of hours, but then I'd be fine. Boy, was I wrong. I was so wrong. I knew when he started telling me all the pre-op stuff that it would be bleeding for a few days, I'd be in pain for a couple of weeks, not be able to drink or have solid food. There'd be all this swelling, risk of infection, blah, blah, blah. But I had no idea that it would be as bad as it was. It turns out that first of all they had to get all the little broken bits of tooth that were hanging on. Then they had to bring out the little mini chainsaw and cut the tooth in half. And then they got the tooth out, but they also had to cut into my gums and take the nerves out. And boy, are they big. I had no idea they were so big. And I don't know that I really wanted to see them, but the dentist wanted to earn his keep and have show and tell with me. And one of the nerves was sort of really curled up, and I was wondering if that might be the one that has been causing me all this pain. But anyway, he really struggled getting those two nerves out, and he was changing position around the chair and pulling and tugging. And me with my needle freak thing ended up having 4 needles just in and around the tooth, and then one didn't sort of take, so they gave me another one. So it was 5 needles pulling out this tooth, pulling out the nerves, and cutting into my gums, and so it was incredibly painful. And I thought, I would go home and be fine. I didn't think that this 2 weeks of pain and bleeding and stuff applied to me, because I've got a pretty good pain threshold. And so boy was I wrong. I came home and I was really nauseous and had to lay down, probably from the thought of the 5 needles I'd just had. And my face was so swollen I couldn't speak for a couple of days, which is why I haven't been able to do any reviews. My face has been really swollen and really in a lot of pain. I've actually had to take a painkiller, which I don't like doing, but girls got to sleep. And the swelling has only just started to go down. I've got to put an ice pack on it every 20 minutes and gargle, swish out with salty water every hour. But it has been incredibly painful, and it's made it very difficult for me to be able to speak. So that's why I haven't done the reviews. David tells me my voice is back to normal, and I sound like my normal self, so I hope I do. And but yeah, it's been a few days of unpleasantness there with the tooth, and add to that, I've got this infection, 2 infections going, and the doctor doesn't want to give me antibiotics because I've had them a few times this year, and I'm allergic to penicillin and any sort of derivative of it. And the other ones that she gives me as an alternative, she says I've already had too much this year, so I've got to battle out these 2 infections by myself. But one is a giant infection in my leg, which makes it very difficult to walk. So between the 2 infections, the tooth and my tendon in my wrist that is not getting any better whatsoever, and I can't get into a physio, I felt completely broken the last week or so. But I think I'm turning a corner now, and I'm feeling a little bit better and feeling like I can talk, but still in quite a bit of pain. And I think he might be right about the 2 weeks of pain, which I didn't think applied to me, but maybe it does. But I'll be interested to see that now that the nerves are gone and the whole tooth is gone, whether I still do get this psychosomatic pain in the tooth, and whether it will now be all over. Personally, I'd rather have the $5,000 back, because the whole thing's been a nightmare. And to be honest, I'm just glad the tooth's out right now. I'm just glad it's all over. He said, my latest dentist said it should have had a crown on top, which none of my previous 3 dentists have said, including the specialist that did the work. So I don't know where that's coming from, but it would have been good to know earlier, I guess, but before I fractured the tooth, and have spent the last week in pain. And I I think by Christmas Day I'll be able to eat solid food because I'm really getting sick of custard. There is only so much jelly and custard that a girl can have, but hopefully by Christmas Day it'll be feeling a little bit better. So luckily I hadn't wrapped up David's mum and his brother's Christmas presents, so I'm going to put them away for another year. But I hope that you guys have got all your Christmas shopping done, and I hope you're having a better week than I am. I'm sure you are, and I'm sure some of you aren't, and it's a terrible time of year for some people. You know, they're lonely and stressed and, you know, have health issues and whatnot, but you know that you're not alone, that there are always people, especially nowadays online, that you can talk to or you can just, you know, vent to, and there's someone always there to listen. In my Facebook group, I'm always there to listen. I might not be able to, you know, do much at the moment, but I'm always available to listen if you're struggling at this time of year, which is not unusual. It's a stressful time of year. I hope you guys are all doing well and you have a lovely end of year, whatever you might celebrate, or if you celebrate at all. And I will be back later on this month with another picture for my Greyvember colour along, and back this week, now that my face is not as swollen and my voice is back, and with the rest of my beautiful books from Poland that I recently showed you in that little mini colouring haul. So I can't wait to show you the rest of them, including a new artist. The work is just gorgeous, so there's something to look forward to. And the Black Widow colour wheel, I will be working on it and trying to get that out before the end of 2021. So until next time, stay safe and happy colouring.